title of our lesson tonight. I set two things equal to each other for the title, okay, like an equation. So I want to look at that phrase, I don't have time, that we sometimes use. So here's the title. I don't have time equals, it's not important enough to me. Okay? I don't have time equals, it's not important enough to me. How often do we use this excuse? Right? We've all probably used it in our lives. Someone asks you to do something that you really don't want to do. And what's the easiest excuse for us to jump to right away? Well, I'm sorry, I just don't have a whole lot of time on my hands right now. We always go to that. If I had more time, I'd love to help you, right? But I simply don't have the time. And then we'll start listing to them all of the things that we have to do on our list to try to convince them, hey, I really don't have any time. And we say, yeah, I've got a lot of work to finish at home this weekend. The dishes have been piling up the past few days, and I need to get those taken care of. My boss has been keeping me late about 20 minutes every day this week. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to drive the kids to school that day, so long story short, I really don't have a whole lot of time, so I can't do it. And is it the case that we legitimately don't have a whole lot of time sometimes to give in our lives for certain things? Sure. Right? We all get very busy. But what do we often do as human beings? Something else comes along, right? In our busy lives. And we have the opportunity to go somewhere or do something that we really would like to do. Let me just give you an example of this. Let's say that I asked Betty on a Friday night, Betty, do you want to go to the football game with me? Betty hates football. Betty thinks it's boring. She gets cold going to the football games this time of year. What would her response probably be? Well, Travis, I think I'm going to get some things done around the house tonight. It's a Friday night after all. Maybe catch up on some schoolwork, some grading, maybe scrub the bathroom walls. I'll think of something. But let me ask you this question. What if that same night, instead of asking her to go to the football game with me, what if I said, Betty, would you like to go with me to Great Lakes Crossing Mall? How do you think her response would be different? I would imagine her eyes would get all big and she'd grab her coat and be like, you want to go right now or do you want to go first? My schoolwork can wait until tomorrow. I'll put that off. So here's my point. What you are willing to make time for shows what's most important to you. What you're willing to make time for, it shows what's most important to you. And when we often claim, I don't have time for this or that, it really shows the truth. It's just not a high priority for me. It's not important enough to me right now. That's really what we're saying when we don't have time. It's not, if it was really important to us, if it was something we really wanted to do, we would find a way to make it happen. Right? Think about our fall party coming. I'm sure we all have it marked on our calendars. I can probably promise that everybody would be there no matter what, right? Nothing's going to stop us from coming. We will be there. We've set it on our calendars. So the idea, I don't have time, equals, it's not important enough to me. So let's make the spiritual application. And you know where this is going, right? When it comes to studying your Bible, when it comes to evangelism, and reaching lost souls, when it comes to visiting the sick or any number of things for the Lord's work, how often are we tempted to use this same repeated excuse for the Lord's work? I don't have time. I don't have time to do it. I would really like to sit down and study my Bible a lot more the way that I should, but I don't have the time of day for it. I couldn't possibly, my day wouldn't work if I had to sit down and read. If I wasn't working this full-time job, I'd be teaching a lot more lost souls if it wasn't for my job. I just don't have enough time right now. And as we've been going through our Sunday morning lessons series, My God and His Money, in the back of my mind, as we were discussing this topic and as I was thinking about the arguments with that and the things we were saying, I couldn't help but make comparisons to how much of our time we're giving to God. We were talking about our money, but I started thinking about our time. In those lessons, we talked about how God has always asked for the first fruits from his children. Right? Proverbs chapter 3, verses 9 and 10 says, "Honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increase." And for those of us who don't really exactly remember what that phrase means, in the farming society of Israel, for the Israelites, each year what would happen, the people would receive a harvest that would come into them that had been planted. The Lord would bless them with grain or wheat coming their way. And what was the first thing that they were to do with that increase? Of all that, what was it? Give back to God. Give to God first. So out of that 100% harvest that was coming into them, God commanded them to take 10% of that out and dedicate it to him first in a feast. Right? Deuteronomy 14:23. So that's the idea of first fruits. And so in our Sunday lessons, we looked at the repetition of that number, 10%, and how they would always often give 10% to God. And as we were discussing, about how we are stewards of God's money, that we've been entrusted with all of God's goods. Everything we own is actually from God. I started to make some thought connections about how God also entrusts us every single day with a new set of 24 hours. You ever thought about that? Are we not also stewards in that sense of the time that God gives us each day? Stewards of our time. Is God not also looking at how much of our time we're dedicating and giving back to him? Is he looking at that? I believe so. Does God not also expect us to give of the first fruits of our time to him, just like our money? Every day we're awake for approximately 16 hours. If you sleep for 8 hours, you should be awake for 16. So there's your harvest, so to speak. 16 hours every day God is blessing you with. Here's a new 16 hours. What are you going to do with it? And that's the question that we all face every single day we get up. What am I going to do today? And as we were talking, just like God does not, he's not asking for us to give 100% of our money back to him every time we give. He's not. He's also not asking for 100% of our time, is he? Every single day. Right? We ought to have the attitude that I want to give 100% of my time, but practically speaking, that just wouldn't be possible, would it? God does not expect every waking hour of your day to be spent reading the Bible. It wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't work. He doesn't expect that from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed tonight, you should be evangelizing for 16 hours. Does God expect that? No. Right? It's not even possible. I would say it's not practical. But if you think about it, we have to work. Right? We have to provide for our family. If a man does not work, neither shall he eat, Paul says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 and verse 10. We have to do things like clean ourselves, shower, brush our teeth, go to the bathroom. We have to eat. So God understands that not every single waking hour can be spent for his work and dedication to him. Right? We're Christians 24 hours a day, but not every single moment is spent in the Lord's work. That's what I'm talking about. But I want to ask you this interesting question. What would happen in each of our lives if you started dedicating at least 10% of your time to God every day? What if we did that? Would 10%, that number 10% we talked about last Sunday of your time, would that not be a fair amount and a right amount that we could set as a standard to give back to God? 10% of our time? Is that not also a good standard? What is 10% of your day? What is 10% of your waking hours? Well, if 16 hours represents 100% of our day, then 10% of 16 would be, move the decimal over, right? It's 1.6 hours of your time. That's 1 hour and 36 minutes would be 10% of your day. You say, Travis, that's a lot of time. Is it? Is that a lot of time? Because I don't doubt that any one of us would have a problem sitting down to watch an entire movie for an hour and 36 minutes in a day. Betty, do you want to go to the football game? No. I'd rather go to the mall. Right? We need to think about how we are giving back to the Lord with our time, and what that shows about how much we desire to give Him our time. Can we really call ourselves servants of Christ if we don't open up our Bibles for a whole week? Can we call ourselves servants? If we never once try to evangelize, never spend any time in prayer, maybe 10 minutes a day goes to God. If you put God's time in the number one priority on your list, every day you have a new set of 16 hours and you give to God first, what would that look like? How do you do that? It's me waking up and saying, all right, first things first, God comes first. Does that mean I have to wake up and do my 2 hours right away? No. To give Him the first fruit, here's what it looks like. I'm going to dedicate 2 hours of my day to the Lord this day. I work from 9 to 5. I'm talking hypothetically. So I'm going to make it a priority to give God my time from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock when I get home tonight. That's what it looks like. Okay? Or maybe that wouldn't work for you. I'll study and I'll pray from the time I get up for an hour and then I'll go to work. And I'll come home tonight and I'll do 30 minutes and then I'll put the kids to bed and then I'll do another 30 minutes. Plan it out. The time. That's what it looks like to give the first fruits of our time to God. Purposing in your heart. We looked at that phrase. Planning beforehand that you are going to dedicate time to God. What could we fill that time with? Prayer. It doesn't all have to be studying God's Word. Some of it can be prayer, studying, reading, personal growth and learning, teaching ourselves, teaching the lost, preparing to teach the lost, spending our time getting ready to teach lost souls. You could get together with individuals of the Lord's church and sing praises together, sing. That'd be a good way. Visiting the sick or helping the needy. There's so many things we could do. Fellowship with Christians. There's a lot of ways we could use our time for God. There's so much to do. The harvest truly is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Matthew 9:37. We made this statement about giving our money back to God, and we'll make it the same statement about our time as we close. Sometimes we don't give to God what's right. We give to God what's left. Right? We've been busy all day. We come home, and before bed we have 10 minutes. 10 minutes before bed, so we read a little bit and go to sleep. It's because we haven't prepared in our hearts to give first of our fruits to God, of our time. So I want to be honest about the Church of Christ in America. This is a topic that I think should worry us. I think we should think about this. This society is so busy all the time. Our constant work schedules, distractions, distracted by so many things. I hope that we at this congregation don't let the cares of this world distract us from giving the proper time to God. Okay, so that's the thought for tonight. I don't have time equals, it's really not that important to me right now. So if anybody needs to make things right for any reason from their Christian lives, the invitation is open as we stand and as we sing the invitation song.